This is Wandering Universe. Today I'll be exploring an unfinished project that was left abandoned for more than 3,000 years. The unfinished obelisk at the Aswan quarry. So, let's go exploring. Here we are. This is an aerial view of the unfinished obelisk. This down here is the site of the unfinished obelisk right here, and then as you can see, this red line is pointing all the way to the bank of the River Nile. Next picture, up close, is, as you can see, you know what this is, the very artifact itself. And I'll show you the before photo. I think it was taken in the late 19th century. This is how it looked back then. Not many cracks. There might be a crack here, another crack there, another one there, but as you can see, most of it was covered in a lot of sand, soil, debris back then. But look at it today. A lot of it's cleared, and you see the undergrowth of the limestone, the bedrock right here. Very interesting to compare between then, well actually now, and then. Very interesting. So I'll go into a discussion about this particular object. This distinct object was left abandoned as it is during Egypt's reign, 1479 to 1458 BC. It's made of solid red granite. It was supposedly commissioned for placement at Karnak or somewhere nearby the actual temple. It is 137 feet or 41.75 meters tall. Base is 4.2 meters and weighs about a whopping 1,168 tons. During its time, it was carved on site from granite bedrock, as you have seen in a previous photo. Now, the assumption is that the tools that were used to carve this particular and very complicated object were ancient Egyptian tools such as copper, bronze chisels, stone tools like diorite, and wooden wedges. I'll just illustrate this. This is what I mean. Now, you've seen this photo before. I've shown this in previous videos to you, these Egyptian bronze tools. I've always said this, and I've highlighted this very clearly, that it is unlikely that you can use these bronze tools to carve this object. It is absolutely impossible, but I'll go on. I won't go in a tangent just yet. Dilorite is a volcanic rock. I'll show you what it looks like. These balls of Dilorite, weighing each 5.5 kilos, and they're about 15 to 30 centimeters in diameter, and they're found near the obelisk. Strangely, using primitive tools to chisel and carve flawlessly using Dilorite stones on granite. It's a hard stone. How can it be possible that this type of primitive tool can actually really pound deeply into a very hard rock surface? You'd have to question that. It requires a lot of water to cool it down to prevent the stone from overheating, which is true. I've actually demonstrated this in a previous videos when it came to actually carving and cutting a granite block, and you've seen the huge machine that does that, and you need a hose of water or crate of water next to the machine to hose it along the surface of the granite block in order to cut it precisely and to prevent the stone from overheating. And believe it or not, it can actually generate electric sparks flying off the diamond blade if there's no water overheating the blade itself. So yeah, you can actually set it alight if you're not very careful. If you bash it or pound it with these rocks, as you can see here, it would leave a mark some sort of concave hole on the surface of the stone. Now, I'll just demonstrate this. What's interesting about this particular picture is that there's straight carved lines here along the surface. If it was pounded, you'd see the round indentation. This is a straight, smooth indentation. Quite precise in a way when you think about it. On each level here, around here, and other areas too. Look at this area as well. So it's quite straight and smooth. And I notice there's long straight ridges along this particular rock face here. And even along this smooth surface on this step here. So I doubt it there is any indication of pounding indented along the surface of this granite floor. I doubt it very much that they would leave such primitive evidence behind. This is an interesting one. It may look like the Dilorite rocks have pounded and bashed through the underside of the obelisk. I doubt it could penetrate through a hard surface that easily. It will take tremendous amount of energy, stamina, and force to create this particular indentation. I doubt it that a single Dilorite rock could do or achieve such a task. So it's interesting that they had to go underneath the belly of the obelisk. It seems like it may have been some sort of rounded, heated machine, or it could have been one of those steel machines that had a round ball at the tip of it, and then they had to drill. It looks like it's being drilled right into the surface of the rock. And it looks like they had to do it one by one, or they did it simultaneously in order to cut through one part of the undergrowth of the obelisk, the granite edge there. So that's interesting to see. Now, here's another one. What's interesting about this particular photo is that, see these lines here? This is an indication of watermarks. They have been left behind through the ages, through time, through evolution. Now, these look like they're either rain marks that form these limestone edges, these ridges, and that could be a good indicator how old this particular limestone rock is. There's been a lot of assumptions and kind of flawed estimations about how old each particular obelisk, or a combination of all the obelisks, are aged. Some of them are aged 3,500, 4,000 years old. I doubt it though. Not according to this surface here. Not according to that. I think this is a lot older. This rock is telling me, and this would probably tell you, that according to these limestone ridges here, it's a lot older. It could be that this particular rock was once a cave, an underwater cave. Think about that for a moment. This particular obelisk lies on a slope of about 10 degrees horizontal, as you can see in this photo here. Labourers worked 8 hours a day under the blazing sun. There would have been periods of long droughts that seldom rained during the ancient times. What's interesting about this one is that there's a crack here, there's one cut and another cut. These cuts are done perfectly, with precision, and that's using a very effective tool that has a laser tip. And when you aim it right at the side surface of this particular obelisk, you get a very precise, smooth cut. This looks like it was a human attempt. I'm not sure how they did it, but somehow they did it. Probably they just stuck a wooden wedge as they tried to hammer through the surface of this granite, and then suddenly, as they hammered it to the point it split it open, but didn't realize that it actually cracked it open, and the result became an unprecise, unclean cut. These two are very precise and very clean. So what I'm saying to you is that there's a big difference between that one and that one. This was done much later on. This was done much, much earlier on. So think about that for a moment. The underside of the obelisk, there's evenness of the cuts themselves. The walls are vertical. The width of the cut in the attached photo is approximately 50 centimeters wide. It is very consistent and it's seamless. The sides show no sign of being bashed or pounded like tenderizing meat before you marinate it. And this is what I'm talking about right here. I reckon it was some drill steel head heated machine. They used water at the same time to prevent the rock from overheating, and then they left these marks. Obviously what they're trying to achieve is to cut it right through simultaneously on both sides to actually have space underneath the obelisk. So that way they can levitate it upright and then transport it over to its destination. But it's very precise, but definitely not with this rock. I doubt it. It would take you months, years to get even just one concave groove on the surface of this granite block. It is absolutely impossible. You can do this by hand. This was done by a very accurate machine. Now I'm going to show you another one. This is another photo on the other side view of the obelisk, underbelly of it. And as you can see, this is what I've been talking about here. I reckon it was done by a machine. I reckon it was some sort of machine that you bore tunnels in order to prepare for a railway line. So those machines would have round blades, like balls of steel blades, I'll call it. They're attached to a giant rock boring machine, and they bore through underneath a mountain, through bedrock, and they cut a tunnel very neatly, very accurately, and they have to change those blades every 5 to 10 minutes. Otherwise, they just wear out very quickly. And I believe that that's the type of machine they would have used back then. So definitely not man-made here. Cuts of 20 to 25 centimeters wide, very precise in vertical and width. So I'm talking about here and I'm talking about here. Now, this is what I've been talking about. As you can see, they used that, I call it tunnel boring machine. Very similar, but it'd be for the outside. And I don't think it would have been steel. I reckon it would have been a laser stone cutting machine that achieved this result. Now, it's impossible that to achieve that we used this. And please give me a break. I'm not going to go on about it. And yes, I reckon, according to this photo, this was a man-made attempt trying to mimic the precise cut where he's walking on there. We tried to do it and we failed miserably. And here, I think they used a similar machine. They talked about this about the Greek Parthenon, how each of the pylons were cut in several pieces, in several blocks, and then on the surface they used a round standing device. We've got two handles, it's a big round disc, and it's got stone balls underneath. There's about 10 to 20 of them, and then it takes about 4 men to grind and sand the surface, and that would take like a week or a month if it was our doing. However, according to this, looks like whoever was trying to sand the surface of this particular area, at the tip, I'll call it the close to the apex of this obelisk, somehow had to abandon the project abruptly. So something was going on. Maybe that the drought was extending. Maybe there was a meteorite approaching on the other side of the planet. Some sort of event that caused this obelisk to just suddenly abruptly finish and run. Just basically do a run-up after that. Vertical cuts into the granite from what? A laser stone cutting device size of our mobile phones. Now, this is what I'm talking about, and I've demonstrated this, illustrated this photo in my previous videos, so you can go there. And imagine back then, not us, but whoever they were, used this levitation device using magnets, and just by volume of the obelisk, they set it on top of the surface and used a mobile phone or an iPad, keypad, whatever coordinates it used, and then it slowly, very gently raised the stone block or an obelisk by using several of those devices laid out on top of the smooth surface, and then floated over to the destination where it was going to be set. So whoever would have invented this type of levitation device did so with absolute accuracy and efficiency. So that it is an example of high advanced technology. And this is just the other side of the obelisk right here. What's interesting about this particular quarry, before I go on about the structure here, is that it looks like this quarry has been used many times over the last several thousand years. I reckon it's several thousand years, but it's been slowly chipped away, slowly carved, slowly drilled away over many thousands of years. My guess could be as good as any alternative theory archaeologist. I believe this particular quarry itself was an underwater cave many thousands of years ago. Think about that for a moment. It's totally mind-boggling how the Egyptian slaves, who were unqualified construction workers for its time, managed to stumble across this object by hacking away at it using diorite stones for hours on end, day in, day out, under the burning sun. I'm surprised they never got sunburnt back then. I bet they were scarred with second-degree burns. If that were so, there would have been a high turnover of labourers to prevent a labour shortage. Now, I'm going to give you a black and white photo. I illustrated this. This was taken in 1904. So once again, big difference between what it looked like back then to how it looks today. I'll show you another one. This is another viewpoint of the obelisk right here. Like I said, see these indentations? This is man-made. Either it's man-made or someone else was doing it at the time. And I think what happened is that if it was us that caused these rectangular indentations, possibly we were trying to put wooden wedges into it to maybe crack the stone in half with precision. And that you need water in order to cool the stone off. But somehow this crack is an indication that we made a very sloppy attempt at splitting the granite stone. What's interesting is that this stone base would have been this obelisk's destination. That would have been the stone base that this obelisk would have stood on centuries ago. But for some reason, like I said, some catastrophic event happened, and they just had to drop everything and just run. That was it. Something happened back then. Give you another illustration. This is at the bottom view of this obelisk. As you can see, very precisely cut. There are cracks appearing here. I think that's to do with wear and tear and age over the centuries, especially when drought forms and very little rainfall can actually make this granite stone crack under the heat of the sun. So as you can see, these cracks have been appearing over time. But what's interesting is that they really did quite a precise job in leaving a very wide gap underneath here and on the sides there in order to try and levitate this particular obelisk. So that's very interesting there. Yet, a few alternative, unconventional, open-minded historians and archaeologists have argued against conventional speculation and guesswork that are mainly pie-in-the-sky statements. Wet wood carve small cavities into the stone, create a line, the slots filled with sun-dried wooden wedges, repeatedly soaked in water. Expansion of wood caused the carved rock to break free from its homes. I'm talking about the base, under the base there. Trenches and pits were pounded out by several thousand men in groups of 3, 2 standing, holding and raising the rammer, and 3rd squatting and directing the blow of the proper place. And I'll show you what I mean. This is what I mean. Now, back then, they had to dig out a lot. We're talking about tons and tons of sand in order to create this pit. And as you can see, there's sand, the built up sand on the sides here in order for this particular obelisk to easily slide through along the side of the sand, solid sand, fingers crossed, and fit onto the base without cracking it open or damaging the bottom. So to align it and anchor it center on here. A deep hole to level into the foundation pit using planks of wood to lever it, rocking it gently side to side like rocking a baby to sleep, using ropes, pulleys and sleds. Transported 65 meters to the location pit via sleds. Now you have to question, where did all the wood come from? This is what's very interesting. This is what I'm trying to illustrate here. I doubt very much that wooden wedges, wet wooden wedges, had the capacity to really slam right through this rose granite. I doubt it very much. This was done by a machine, a laser stone cutting machine. Look how accurate these rectangle openings are. Very, very precise. And I think it's more to do that they put a steel frame. They wedged a steel frame into these rectangular holes, not wood. So I think that theory is very flawed. Now I'm going to show you another one here. This gets more interesting. I think once again it's very similar. Look at this indentation right here. That's massive, that one. I think it was more to do with, what do you call it, a mountain tunnel drilling machine, but I think it was more to do with laser cut precision that caused these very interesting indentation marks on the surface. I think what they were trying to do is that they were trying to sand and smooth out the surface of the granite stone right here using that technology. And see these square indentation marks here? See the abrasion right here? It looks to me that it started from the top and it sanded all the way down, and I think it was once again something similar to do with mountain tunnel drilling machines right there. They would have been super sharp blades, sharper than a diamond blade itself. So that's quite interesting to see. And I'll show you, this is very smooth cut. They call it a uniform cut, very smooth. And once again, it was using a very sharper than a diamond blade, cut going vertically down to the underbelly of this obelisk right here. So once again, they had to bore down the surface wall of this obelisk in order to create quite a precise cut. And like I said, I have to debunk this. Egyptian tools were not an option. Wooden rollers must be 6 meters in length each. Need 40 plus wooden rollers. How were they erected? You use a ramp of earth or sand, extend it all the way to its landing point where it's going to stand, drag the damn thing to the location. Use a funnel-shaped pit at the end of it, lowering it by removing sand to form a pit and slowly lowering it to the bottom. Funnel is shaped like a petrol funnel that you see the bows are at the petrol station. Curve of the funnel helps the structure smoothly whilst removing sand by men with baskets as it lowers. That, I may say, is insubstantial theory, and I'll demonstrate this. Now, this is a diagram. I'll tell you the person who created this diagram in a moment, but this is what I've been talking about here. So this is the top of the ramp, 10% slope, using these wooden rollers right here to roll it carefully to the very edge of the sand pit, and then to very smoothly with ropes pull it, hoist it, and then anchor it to the bottom pit of this stone base right here, and it has to be dead on center. Once again, with primitive technology, I doubted humans, or should I say us humans, would have achieved it back then. So this diagram is illustrating that it is impossible that we could have done this precisely. It's all just pure assumptions that lead to shit. It's not plausible. Plus, going downhill, good luck in brake handling using ropes and feet as brakes, because when you're transporting that giant obelisk all the way to, say, Karnak, it's not a smooth ride. It's actually very bumpy, it's very rough, it's very uneven, and it's a downward hill slope. So if you're going to use your feet as brakes, boy, you better have tough soles underneath it. Now here's a human attempt at trying to mimic whoever they were that got started with this project. And as you can see, we created a lot of errors. These are the precise cuts, but these are our errors here. And as you can see, we're not that precise. We're definitely not. Trust me. I mean, look how precise the sharp edge of this obelisk right here. That's really precise. We couldn't even achieve that with primitive tools. Virtually impossible. There are too many imperfections, and why I'd say is because the human attempt to build it to avoid embarrassment, incapable of building one, or because they were just under so much pressure to make a good public impression, a big show, to make the king and queen of Egypt look opulent and magnificent supreme beings, to say that look what we've done, to make the masses adorn them. So that's what I'm talking about there. And I'm just showing you just of the quarry right here, and as you can see, this quarry has been used for centuries. You can tell by the way it's been carved and chiseled and cut to create stone blocks in order to carry them over to the building site in order to build the pyramids, the palaces in Luxor, etc. And as you can see, there's another possible obelisk. They were trying to make miniature obelisks right here, and obviously that project was left abandoned. You can see there's more indentation square indentations right there. So once again, it's some sort of rock carving drilling machine similar to what you use when you're drilling a tunnel underneath a mountain rock. So I think that's what the type of tool or machinery they used back then. And here's another one as well, trying to make another obelisk there. It looks imperfect. That's normal when you're getting started in a building project. But look at the wall right here. That's really smooth. And look at the holes here. I think they're square holes. Once again, there must have been steel beams. There must have been steel beams that probably used cables in order to hoist and lift these obelisks. Maybe to finish off the production. There was probably a bit of a production line of creating these obelisks. But I think this was once an underwater cave, this quarry right here. So just interesting to look at it. Sand is not a stable soil. It's dry. Not even adding water to it will keep it solid as a rock long enough to help the obelisk levered to the bottom pit. It will collapse in a heap. If it were pulled by ropes and a ramp was used, you'd see abrasion marks on the surface of each obelisk. For example, to move it from the Aswan quarry to Luxor in Egypt is about 252 kilometers and it's about a 4.5 hour drive. Easy said than done, right? Now I'll just illustrate this. Okay, I'll let you think that for yourself there. And I just want to show something quite peculiar here. That's the obelisk right here, and I think I may have guessed it correctly. That's its location. That's the foundation that this obelisk would have been placed right here. I think that was the aim, but somehow, like I said, the project was abandoned due to unforeseen events. Maybe something was going horribly wrong in the area. There was a civil war. There was some sort of crisis. They just had to leave it behind and go. So something went wrong there during that particular time. Now there's I think he's an explorer. I'll just call him an explorer. His name is Rik Negus. He wrote an article called The Obelisk of Egypt, The Myths of Their Construction and Erection Explored. It was published on July 3rd, 2015. I'll leave the website address for you in the comments section below. But what he states is very interesting, and I do agree with his statement. Negus believes that the structure may be suggesting that it was manufactured by someone else other than us, utilizing far more highly advanced technology that goes beyond our wildest dreams. Unfortunately, whoever they were are unwilling to supply their high-tech wizardry to us anytime soon. It still remains under wraps, and I couldn't agree more. Now, as you can see, this is an artist impression back in the early Industrial Revolution, how we could transport an obelisk. I believe this was going to Rome to center it in the Vatican there. But the story goes, it wasn't transported and hoisted in one piece. It was actually cut into several blocks. Damn it, they damaged the bloody obelisk. How dare they? Here's a black and white illustration. Yes, they transported this particular obelisk from Alexandria all the way to Paris in one piece with great difficulty. I've talked about this in a previous video about an introduction to obelisks, and I have said that it took 300 men and many weeks to actually hoist, level, and center it dead on onto this stone base there. So their attempt at doing it was almost impossible. Now, this one obelisk was transported once again from Egypt to New York from Alexandria in 1890. This photo was taken, and I reckon this was either done in one piece, amazingly, or it was cut into several pieces and wrecked the damn thing once again. And here's another black and white photo of this. I think that's the same obelisk in this photo right here. They were packing it up, and as you can see, to put it onto a naval steam ship, a steel one, to transport this heavy obelisk granite stone all the way from Alexandria to New York. I'm going to show you something really, really fascinating here, and an artist goes by the name of Michael Heiser. He did an artwork for the LA County Museum of Art. It's called Levitate Mass. This would have been in mainstream news, and it's carrying a large boulder onto this amazing crane truck, and I'll show you this. Compare this to this. Okay, this is solid granite rock. Okay, incredibly heavy. This is about 340 tons, right? And this is how they transported it. Yes, see this? See the amount, the enormous effort they had to go through to transport this one piece of granite block. This is incredible. The feat of engineering it took just to transport one. I'm not talking about several. I'm talking about one on this enormous crane. I'll show you another view. Now, this crane truck is 295 foot long and has 196 wheels. It was custom built just to transport this boulder. It only moved 7 miles per hour, and it took 11 days to get to its destination from the quarry. A monster of a crane, as you can see here. And the Emirates, I think it's called the Emmett custom made truck, was especially made for this boulder to move through LA. So if you want to see these photos, I'll thank trucktrend.com for the photos they supplied. It's titled "For the Megalithic Moving of 340 ton rock photos" right here. So I thank them for that. And this is the ultimate destination to get to the actual museum. And as you can see, I think what the artist was trying to demonstrate in this feat of maneuverability was that it is virtually impossible that us humans use wooden sleds, wooden rollers, ropes, and a slave master to whip our backs under the burning hot sun for hours and days, weeks and months, years on end to move this 340 ton boulder from a quarry and 500 miles all the way to the building site where they were making the pyramids using that primitive technology. It would have taken them yonks just to even make 1 mile, okay, per day. And even with our modern technology, even with our modern machines today, we couldn't even possibly achieve the feat of ingenuity that whoever built the pyramids and the obelisks back then did it with incredible efficiency, time efficiency. Okay, so I think that's what the artist was really trying to demonstrate right here. So us humans constructing an awesome feat of engineering by just using primitive tools without a blueprint, a building plan. Where is it? If we continue to stay put with our conventional beliefs of ignorant wisdom, then our human evolution on this planet we've exploited is doomed for failure. Denial is not an option. Do you think they only made the obelisks in Egypt only? Well, this one will make your mouth drop. This is a Baalbek obelisk, I'll call it. It is situated in Lebanon. It is the second monolith they found in the 1990s at a quarry in Lebanon. It weighs a whopping 1,242 tonnes. It's a rectangular limestone block, 19.5 to 20.5 metres in length, 4.34 to 4.56 metres width, 4.5 metres height, and 2.6 to 2.8 grams or cubic centimeters density. Okay, I think you may know that in physics, but how about that, huh? So just when you thought their unique blueprint was all done in Egypt, no, they actually franchised their concept all over the circumference of the equator back then. And Lebanon is just one place where they actually made this particular obelisk right there. Pretty impressive. Absolutely remarkable feat of ingenuity. In the next video, I'll be exploring the well-preserved obelisks that have stood the test of time, the Karnak obelisks in Luxor. I'll leave you with this. Believe in the impossible, and it will be made possible. That's all for now.